Hi and welcome back to Darjashat Cafe, and we're continuing with our Evil series. Last time we talked about Philip Zimbardo's book, The Lucifer Effect, and this time we're going to talk about the movies that were made about Stanford Prison Experiment. One of them is a German film called Das Experiment, directed by Oliver Schiebelberg, something like that. Sorry, his name is too hard for me. And he's the same director of The Downfall. Also, the second film was produced in the States in 2010. It was directed by Paul Scheuer, who directed Prison Break TV series. And then we have in the 2015 the Stanford Prison Experiment, directed by someone who's unknown. I heard that Dr. Philip Zimbardo participated in writing the script. But today we're going to talk about the 2010 film, The Experiment, directed by Paul Scheuer. I'm going to leave the two links of the other two movies in the description in case you want to know more about those two movies. But we're going to focus on this one because I think this is like the most worth watching. The 2010 movie opening scene starts with a group of animals fighting with each other. Then the scene moves to peaceful demonstrations and the violence that is happening between the police officers and the demonstrators. So here, the director is raising a question about the nature of a human being. That's the start. And then we move on. We see a group of volunteers going to an experiment. They're going to be paid about 14,000 grand for being in the experiment for 14 days. They're going to be divided to two groups, prisoners and guards. And then the professor gives them a set of instructions. They tell them, like, you cannot harm anyone, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And then he says that if you don't stick to the rules, the experiment is going to be terminated and the red light is going to be turned on as an alert that the experiment has been terminated. So what happens later? Later, the guards, because they wanna have that money, they're trying to stick to the rules as much as possible, especially a police officer called Barris. And then here, where the conflict happens, there's another prisoner called Travis. He volunteered in the prison experiment because he wanted to escape the reality that he lived in. He was let off from work because of a budget cut. He participates in peaceful demonstrations against the war, but nothing happens. So he tries to escape from his own reality to be himself, but he ends up in a conflict with those guards who are trying to stick to the rules, but then they start to use violence like gradually when they realize that the red light is not getting turned on once they make violations, and that develops into more violations against the prisoners, and then they end up beating, raping, and even killing one of the prisoners. So, and there is the struggle that happens between Travis and Barris, between the prisoner and the police officer. Travis is trying to get out of the system, get out of those ideas, and tries to end this experiment because it's against the humanitarian standards that he believes in. Barris, on the other hand, feels that he's in power. He is someone who has he's worthy. Like we see in a scene, like he's being abused by his family in his home. So he feels for the first time that he has the authority, and he tells the other guards that I'm the person who has the authority. We are the people who have the authority because the red light hasn't been turned on. So gradually the conflict increases, and then they end up locking Travis in a solitary prison, and Travis is locked up in the darkness, and he tries to get out of the prison in any way he can, and he succeeds. He leads a revolution with the other prisoners against the guards who represent the unfair ruling system, because the prison is like a small state, and those guards are the system, the rules and everything, and then they start fighting with each other, and then the experiment is ended by turning on the red light. The gates of the prison are finally open, so they can get out of that darkness into the complete light. As a comment, like how much there's a connection between the movie and the book. The movie couldn't cover all the points in the book because it's really hard to cover all the ideas in a 500 book through a 2-hour movie. But the movie focused on 3 main ideas. One, it's really important to have surveillance and control over the authority, because an authority without any surveillance, without any accountability, can be an evil authority and can abuse the people. And we can see that through also Abu Ghraib prison incident, that all the violations were done at night shifts when there were no cameras and there was no one watching those American soldiers who were abusing those prisoners. That's one. 2, it's really important as an individual to focus on your identity, to fight against the system, to fight against the power of the group. And this is also observed through Abu Ghraib prison, when one soldier who didn't go with the flow and leaked all the photos that exposed all the torture, all the violations done by the American soldiers. And that guy was under threat for 3 years, and he was under the protection of the American government until it was safe enough for him to move on his own. The third idea is that people can turn evil. So, for example, we see Barris. Barris, at his home, he's like a devoted Christian. He has all those crosses and Bibles at his home, and he's supposed to be the person who has the motivation to be a good person, to be away from evil. But in spite of all those conditions, he turned into an evil person. And this is also the idea that Dr. Philip Zimbardo focused so much, that we are all capable of committing crimes. As a final thing, I need to focus on the most beautiful scene in the movie, which is the opening of the gates and the doors of the prison when the experiment was terminated, because we can see the light flowing into the darkness of that prison. Travis was locked in the solitary in complete darkness. We could see him through special cameras, but he was able to move out of the darkness of his own thoughts, and then he was able to get out of the darkness of that prison into the light of freedom. So that was a really beautiful, perfectly portrayed. So this is all I have for today. So if you have seen the movie, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any additional ideas, any other insights, I'm more than happy to read your comments, and hopefully I can see you next time.